Okay, so the next thing that happened was my mind got led over to the front gate. And for any of you that have been to Heaven Fest before, the lines there are typically enormous and long, and usually the sun is stinking hot. So I was sitting there going, man, we got to get shade for people, man, because it just stinks whenever you get super hot and it starts to wear on your body and your brains and all that stuff. So I started thinking, man, we need shade out there. And then I had this idea. I was like, whoa, what if those aren't shade tents? What if those are like a walk-through experience where people get to see, of all ages, young and old, whether people know Jesus or they don't, what happens if we create an experience where everybody walks through a setup of how 70% of the world lives every day? And I felt like the Lord said, now here's the key here. The key is not saying, hey, the world stinks and it's horrible. All of us already know the world stinks and it's horrible. So it's not to like guilt anybody or like, look how everybody lives already and we need to do something about it. It wasn't that vibe. It wasn't like a stick beating vibe. It was a hopeful vibe where we were walking through, and then I saw these flat screen TVs kind of mounted on poles that were just communicating, look, here's what we're about to do, man. Here is what we're about to do. So it was less about the realities of the world, and it was more about the possibilities of what we could do together as a family. So I saw like everybody walking through this experience and just letting God's heart be communicated and letting seeds of hope be planted in people's hearts. So as they got out of that kind of shade tent area and out of that walkthrough experience, I saw, you know how you go up to the ticket and you give your money and you get your wristband or whatever, if you didn't like buy your ticket online already or something. I saw these giant wells, because we're going to dig wells in India with some of this money that we all raise as a community. So instead of like handing money across tables and then putting it in a little box and the security people taking it to the finance place or whatever, I was like, what if we make a well, like a big well-looking structure? And what if we drop our money in the well? And what if we all had the picture that when we dropped the money, as it left our hand and fell into the well, that it literally transforms into a shovel on the other side of the planet? Because that's what's going to happen. We're going to take some of this money, we're going to give it to Gospel for Asia, and they are going to dig wells for people that have lousy, horrendous water. They get sick all the time and all that stuff. They put a giant sign on the well that says Jesus Wells. And then like a native guy that loves Jesus is hanging out around the well, and they recreate John chapter 4, which is the story of Jesus hanging out with the woman at the well. And everybody's there pumping the water, they're going, well, who's Jesus? This is called a Jesus well, who's Jesus? And this bro steps up and he's like, let me tell you about the living water. I mean, do you see how ridiculously awesome this is going to be? And here's the picture that God gave me about the well specifically. As long as these wells, these physical wells, are hanging out over in India, those wells function like a fingerprint of God on the face of the planet that declares that you and me were on that field that day. Man, as long as that well is pumping water, it is declaring the glory of God. It's declaring that we met, this specific group of people came together and met, raised money, that dug that well that's touching thousands of people's lives. And as long as it's pumping water, it's declaring the glory of God. I mean, that's ridiculous. So that's the type of interactions that we're going to start doing all over the festival, just simply to creatively express the Father heart of God. So in the next video, I'm going to be talking about building this platform. And if you're still digging, like the best is yet to come. So I would advise that you press next. All right, hopefully you do.